Hey, Glenn.
Good discussion, gentlemen. Maz, I think we were talking about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, where the Leafs, I believe at the time, had the lead in the series. And I was thinking, I still don't believe because I was happy to see Austin Matthews score that goal in Game 6. The winner to take it to a Game 7. I was happy for him. I don't wish bad on athletes. I hope that they can fight their way to where they want to be if they're in the slump and things like that. So I was, in some ways, for the first time ever, sort of cheering for him to have a big game, and it was nice to see him score. But, and then the series is over in Game 7. The first goal, if you go back and look, I would suggest that the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs didn't really dig to get back on the back check on that first goal. And he probably wouldn't have been able to make a difference anyway because they were, they had that real quick turnover and then jumped into that rush and scored with a beautiful shot. And I thought, I went back and put it in slow motion, and I looked at Matthews, and he took one stride and then glided back.
Nice.
Now, again, I don't think he could have got there. It was too far. But it just – that's the part that I've always been frustrated with him when I watched that team. And it kind of reared its ugly head. And then it was really an exclamation point after when he said there were passengers.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you what, guys, that's not leadership. If you're going to say that, say it in the locker room, not in the media. You walk around, but if you're going to say it, boy, you better be doing your part. I just it's a hollow, calling out of teammates if you're not pulling your part of the deal, doing so. Well,
That's the old.
I know in Vancouver right now, guys. In Vancouver, people are going, "Boy, I'd like one of the other guys, maybe, but I hope we don't get Matthews."
Don't worry about it, Vancouver. You ain't getting Matthews. You're gonna lose. You're gonna lose Hughes in a bit, and your head's gonna explode. No, but you're right. Like that, the Matthews thing, I felt was very pot calling the kettle black. To a T. Leadership and one thing. Hey, we gotta get on this. You went to the preseason game yesterday, and we had some text messages come in, people saying, it looked pretty bush league. They didn't like the look of it. The game wasn't the greatest. What was your take being there, boots on the ground?
You know what? It was great, honestly. And I know people think that I'm always cheerleading. If I felt like I walked in and it was half empty and it wasn't a very good atmosphere, people were having a blast. And I looked around. I mean, obviously there's only 10,000 people in there, but that's the amount that some hockey teams are drawing at some time. But obviously it's a small town. It's a small local field. The field was in beautiful condition, so there was no problem with, concerns about safety and stuff. There were a few injuries in the game, but that had nothing to do with the field. So they took care of that. And this is what it does. I actually talked to Dwayne Vanu, the president of the Lions, about it at the game. I saw both him and the commissioner at the game, watched pretty much all of it from field level. I asked him about how much those type of things cost a team. Like, is it real expensive to play a preseason game in this small city? And, he basically said when the community and the city get behind it like Langford did in Vancouver Island, well, then it doesn't cost the owner a whole lot. And what it does is it introduces our game to a whole bunch of people that probably will never or have never gone to a game in BC Place. And and then I look in the stands and I walk around looking to see, how many kids are here and how many kids are having fun and they're getting souvenir footballs and jerseys and things like that. And, it only takes one or two of those games for those young kids to think, I love this. I'd like to go to one in Vancouver. Come on, Mom and Dad, let's go. And then you have a fan when he starts making money down the road that wants to bring his girlfriend to a game or whatever. So, I think the preseason is the time to do that. And it made me think of Saskatoon. It really did. Like, immediately. In fact, I mentioned it to Stuart Johnson. They're having training camp up there anyway. Yeah. So the team is already settled in there. They can add some temporary seats, and that would be a very cool preseason atmosphere up in Saskatoon, at this time of year.
I think they did it, Maz, back in the day. I remember biking to Gordie Howe Bowl and I think watching the Riders and Blue Bombers play a preseason game. Do you remember that? I think it was
I remember way back that I think we even had a sort of an inter-squad no kicking. So it was just offense against defense, almost like a scrimmage, a live scrimmage with the Bombers. And they may have done full preseason before that, back when there were 4 preseason games too. That could have happened. I'm not sure. I can't remember offhand.
That's probably what it was, Glenn. So yeah, and if you would have looked up back, sneaking through the fence and I left my Kuahara on the outside, and then I got in and watched. That was me.
Love it. But honestly, I thought it was cool, and again, I think the whole idea behind the preseason in a neutral site that is a small market to show a whole new group of people your product.
Glenn, one of the things I was most curious about yesterday in clicking on the game and watching at CFL.ca, the Stampeders took the dynamite to everything. Coaching staff, roster, you name it.
Pants.
I wanted to see if they were prepared to play in game number 1, because it's easy to say a lot of things. Now to actually make it happen with 33 new faces that never played a CFL. Glenn, they ended up winning the game. Forget the score. They looked ready to play on offense and defense. There wasn't a ton of penalties. Like, they looked like they were dialed in, like that Dave Dickinson and this new coaching staff got the message to them early, and they look prepared. Am I wrong? Did you see the same thing?
Yeah, no, I thought they did. They did come out and played physical. A lot of the guys that I had to keep checking my depth chart and my roster to see who and where they came from and who they are and those kind of things, because that's what both teams sort of did in this game. They played a whole bunch of their young guys. I mean, Vernon Adams didn't even dress. He didn't even put the pads on. He was there and he was on the sideline. But Maz, I did see an aggressive, physical Calgary team that kept battling late into the fourth quarter. Like, even guys that we're sort of playing in the preseason. It's a real tough balance between sort of playing for your job, but also showing the coach that you are a team guy. So don't start doing things that are outside of the scheme of the defense, for instance, or else that's a good way to get yourself cut. But you also want to be noticed so that you can make the team. It's a tough balance, but I did see that in Calgary. I thought P.J. Walker showed some real cool athletic things in the game as a backup quarterback. And just to sort of link this to the first question, guys, Vernon Adams before the game played catch from the sideline with tons of kids that had lined up across the fence on the side of the stands, and he just tossed the ball back and forth to these little kids. I swear that those kids are going to be fans for life. And they didn't even dress him. I mean, Nathan Rourke played 4 plays, and all 4 were handoffs. So clearly there was a plan by both coaches not to, in the first preseason game, put their starting quarterbacks in harm's way early, so they didn't see the field, and it was a chance for the young guys to try and crack the lineup.
Hey, Glenn, what are we looking at for rule changes this year? What do you know? Have we missed anything?
Yeah, there's a couple that I think the fans will may recognize pretty early. First of all of the rules, I just talked to Darren Hackwood recently, the head of officials, to get the sort of perspective on where these rule changes, which are small things in a lot of ways, but could be noticed early in the season, that where they came from, what was sort of the reason behind them. And the general consensus there is the reason behind these new rule changes were for player safety reasons primarily. So some of them, like, for instance, we've seen a couple of times where a receiver goes over the middle, he's reaching for the ball, and a DB will go low into his knees. And when that DB goes low, it's a dangerous hit. And with the receiver not being, ready to, protect himself, being able to move out of the way or jump over the tackler or try to stop and make a move or whatever. So you may see that's going to be a major foul hitting below the knees now. And that's one that protects receivers, player safety, but you might see early, like a defensive back sort of go down. Now, it has to be when the receiver is vulnerable, and that's going to be the interpretation side of this rule. It's going to be, where is he vulnerable? Did he catch it and then in a split second be able to react and maybe avoid the hit so it doesn't matter that the DB went low? Or is he able to, or did he not even see the hit coming and it's dangerous? So there will be times, I think, that there might be frustration from the fans when a DB takes a penalty like that because he went low on a tackle on a receiver and they decided to call penalty. The other one is they've increased the automatic ejection penalties, like the major penalties. So if you're going to get thrown out of the game, and you know how last year where there was a scrum and there was some pushing and shoving and maybe some guy threw a punch, but they'd look back at that and they'd say, well, it wasn't really a punch. He had an open hand and he hit the guy in the side of the shoulder pad, so it wasn't really in the head. So let's just call it a 15-yard roughing penalty and move on. Well, now that player will be thrown out. So there'll be times when there will probably be an ejection in the game, and you'll see, there'll be fans going, well, why did he get thrown out? That didn't seem like much. But they are going to have zero tolerance. If you throw a punch, open hand or not, wherever it hits or not, you're out. You're gone. It's not negotiable.
What about a slap?
A slap, you're out. If you take a swing at another player, you're out of the game. You're disqualified. So it's kind of amping up the, and here's the other one that you might see. A guy's on a kickoff return or a punt return, and he's blocking low, like you're not allowed to block low right now, but they're amping it up to, if you go low on a guy covering on a kick return, then you are a chance to be thrown out of the game. Now, they're going to use replay in real time to help determine if that guy tripped and there was mitigating circumstances that caused him to go low on a guy below the knees. But you can't block below the knees now, so it hasn't changed the rule. It just has increased the penalty if you do it, and they believe there was an intent to go low on it. And then the other one, guys, that I think fans may notice right away is if the ball is on the 20-yard line going in and there's a roughing penalty, a major penalty, unnecessary roughness, let's say, I don't know what an example would be, but let's just say it's an unnecessary roughness penalty. Right now it would be a half the distance penalty. So even though it might be a 25-yard penalty, they're only going half the distance because they're on the 20-yard line going in. Now they will use the maximum amount of yardage down to the 1-yard line. So if you're on the 20-yard line and you get a UR penalty, that ball is going to go down to the 1-yard line like it would if it was pass interference in the end zone. So, again, these are rule tweaks in general to change the behavior of stupid punching stuff after the whistle, of low hits that can be dangerous for, a player or an opponent. And if you do these things, you very likely will be thrown out. And if you take a penalty in plus territory, they're putting the ball down on the 1 yard line.
Glenn, this is all well and good. And I know that when we first chatted about the CFL commissioner coming on, that if they added more cameras like the playoff games and how they shoot the Grey Cup, there's more angles to catch some of this stuff. But if the cameras aren't going to increase and they have to rely on what they have, are we up to the mercy of whatever TSN can capture? Although it could be plain as day to everybody sitting there watching it live. If it doesn't show up on film, you're still may not get that call go your way, correct?
Yeah, Maz, that's sort of a question that's directed specifically to the command center. And the command center has done a pretty good job in the back half of last year, for sure, to help in real time when it comes to like a roughing the passer call, for instance. If there's a roughing the passer, the command center is looking at it automatically, and they can tell the on-field official in real time if it actually wasn't roughing the passer, for instance. Like maybe it looked like he hit him in the head, but he missed his head and the arm went past him or something. And from your angle, it might have seemed that way, but we saw a replay quickly, and it's not a penalty, so they pick it up. There was a whole controversy when Saskatchewan played in Ottawa last year.
Oh yeah.
So
yep.
So your point is a good one, that there will still be times when their angles that they have aren't sufficient to get it completely correct. But if that's the case, then they'll stay with what is called on the field. So in other words, what they felt like last year at the beginning of the season, for the first half of the year, they really felt like the command center was getting too involved with the game in real time, too intrusive. By Labor Day, they changed that. They actually had meetings on that, like conference call meetings and things like that with the coaches and stuff. And they changed it so it had to be clear and obvious for the command center to get involved. And that's where they want to start from this year.
Okay, we got to get to Dave at training camp here, and we didn't even touch on flag football, which you're as big of a fan as me. But just quickly, in a couple of minutes we have left here, NFL owners voted today to send their athletes to 2028, the ones that can. Just big news for flag football, Glenn, and your take on it and what that might mean for CFL.
Yeah, it's going to create more intensity in the discussion. I know they already are. I heard that when I was on Vancouver Island, that the league office and the Players Association are already discussing, the involvement of CFL players in the Olympics. I know that the PA, I think Solomon Elamimian, has already stated from the Players Association point of view that they would love to be part of it. The NFL has voted yes to pros playing in it, which is excellent. And either way, I mean, I don't think, this is my opinion now, but I don't think there's any way that the CFL cannot be involved. We have to make room for it. It's in the middle of our season, so it's way harder, but I think we have to be there. They're discussing it. I think they all want to be there. Now it's just a matter of putting it all together and finding a way to not miss any games in the regular season, but take that break in the summer.
Okay, let's talk more about this on Thursday, because I got a take on that, and then you and I can go off. But we got to get to training camp. Glenn, thanks so much. Hope traffic you get home in one piece and go watch some hockey.
I've been watching a lot of hockey, man.
Attaboy.
Now I'm replaying goals. Talk to you guys later.